And welcome back, AP Economics students, as we continue to do some review for the upcoming AP exams in microeconomics. The really fun part about reviewing for AP exams is that so much of your learning throughout the year kind of falls into place, and sometimes you fill in some gaps that you may have had, but things just start to click and make more sense when you can see it a little more holistically instead of just the pieces. So what I wanted to do was just do a brief review of the circular flow in micro, and maybe some things will make more sense now than they did the first time you saw them. So when it comes to the circular flow, I think it's best to just start with who you are as an individual and just go through the circular flow that way. And then instead of just memorizing what goes where, you want to think about it as a as a journey. Well, we have here the four main entities for microcircular flow, and so I'm going to go to where we start. It doesn't matter where, in fact, on the test anyway. Normally in the multiple choice section, you can put any one of these spots as the starting spot. Normally, though, we start over here. Whether that's an overlap with mathematics with the unit circle, I'm not sure, but this is where I feel most comfortable with, and that is the households and individuals. So households, so that could be a family or individuals. So if you remember, I would usually call this Hawaii for HI, so households and individuals. So that is you, and that's where you start your day. And you leave your house and you want to go to the store. Well, if you leave your house and you go to the store, I'm going to do this in green, you are going to head to the store and you are going to spend money at the store. Now, the name of the store we spend our money at, we call this the POG because there's three different names to it. So I'm going to say P-O-G because sometimes this can be referred to as the product market, sometimes it's referred to as the output market, and sometimes it's referred to as the goods market. They're interchangeable, but that is this market. Okay, so we've all gone to the store and bought stuff. We've done this hundreds, if not thousands of times. Well, what I'm going to interject at this particular spot is you should be thinking there's actually, from an economic student standpoint, you know that there's four different types of markets within the POG. Perfect competition, monopolistic competition, oligopolies, and monopolies. I'm going to come back to that in a little bit, but you want to be chewing on that. So these businesses, or should I say these marketplaces, is where you buy things, and then your money you spend there goes to the firm, the business or the firm. And the thing you want to keep straight with this, and this is going to be revenue right here. The thing you want to keep straight here is just like we would have side-by-side in perfect competition, we would have the market on the left and we'd have the firm on the right. It's the same idea here. Here's the here you are in the marketplace, but this is actually going to the individual firm or business. And so this revenue, this is the flow of money. This is our circular flow here. So I'm going to put dollar signs in either one of those. So your money goes to the market funnels back to the actual business or firm that that's within this marketplace. So there are definitely times where the business and firm is in the marketplace, and this is all one thing. So you don't want to get too hung up about that. So we would say, for example, let's use Fashion Island for an example. You head to the food market. Well, you are at the food market, but your money you spend in the food market goes directly to the business that's in that marketplace. So maybe you picked Five Guys. So it was a food market that your money then went to the actual Five Guys firm or business. Think of it that way. Okay. So then what that company is going to do with your money is they are going to spend that in the resource market. So we call this the RIF. Now I'm not going to connect it yet because I want to identify it here. So up here we have what we've been referring to as the RIF because this has all these synonyms. This could be the resource. It could also be called the input, and it also is sometimes called the factor. So sometimes we call this the POG down here. So I'm just going to put POG. And sometimes up here we call this the RIF. Okay. Now, the resource market is where you go to find your resources, or oftentimes your labor. After you graduate college, you'll probably go to a job fair, and you're one of thousands of college students, and businesses are going there trying to find employees, and it's the you think of it as the job market. But also you might be going somewhere to get a resource to build something, and you need wood or plastics, some sort of material to help manufacture your good. So when businesses head to the RIF to get things, to them, although this is money, this is a cost. Resources cost money. So what started out as you spending money here, this revenue came through it. Part of that revenue is going to the costs of these resources. In fact, usually the most expensive thing is your resources. It's your employees. It's your factors of production. So that's where a lot of the money is going. Okay? And then what that money winds up being when it comes back to your house is, now we've come full circle, is that this is income. And so think about it this way. Pretend that you work at a store that you actually go to as a customer as well. So let's pretend you work at Starbucks. So you leave your house and you spend your money at Starbucks, which is in the coffee market, and that money becomes revenue for Starbucks. But then Starbucks uses that money to pay the costs of you working there, and for you that money comes to you as income, and now you're back at your house. That's the circular flow of money heading first to the POG. Okay? Now the second way of doing the circular flow is what happens if we go the reverse direction. Now I'm going to switch colors here. Hopefully this, with the color balance here, this will be different. So what happens if you leave your house and you go to work? So when you leave your house and you head to work, okay? Well, if you head to work, you are labor. You are a resource. You are a resource. You are one of the factors of production. So if you remember, the factors of production: land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, you're the labor. So you head to work, you head to the resource market, and you are labor. And let's say you get hired from that market by the business. Well, you continue to come back here, and you continue to just be a resource. You haven't changed. You're a resource. I'm going to say FOP, factor of production. And the specific factor of production you are labor. Okay, if we're talking about an individual. Okay, so you go to the resource market and get a job. You are labor. You're a resource. You're a factor of production. Okay? And then what you wind up doing for the business is that you produce goods and services. So you may manufacture something that is a good, or you might provide a service like a restaurant. You provide making food and serving it, and you continue to do that to the household individual. So when we go to work, it's really just two things. It's you're a resource and factor of production, and you make goods and services here. Okay, and that is the circular flow. Now, within the circular flow, these are the little extra things I want you to be thinking of. Is come back here. Let's go back to the POG. Okay, and I want to elaborate on that. When you go to the POG, you're like, oh, the POG, there's 4 things going on here. And the 4 things I want you to be thinking about is you could be going to a place that is perfect competition. Or you could be going to a place that is imperfect competition. Hard saying which one it is. So let's say you go to places perfect competition, and you just want to think to yourself, oh, perfect competition, that's right. Perfect competition is going to have supply and demand. I'm not going to make everything. This is just a small little graph here. But you think to yourself, oh, that's right, perfect competition. I've got Mr. Darp. I'm just going to put MD, Mr. Darp, because I don't want to put all of them there. And let's say I'm in long-run equilibrium, and I think of this graph, and you can look at all the specifics later. You think, oh, maybe it's perfect competition, or within perfect competition, you're like, wait a second, this could be monopolistic competition. So I'm going to say monocomp. This could be an oligopoly. This could be a monopoly. And you want to say to yourself, whichever one of those it is, I know that I have to know the graph that goes with it, and that is the graph that has chopsticks. And you have that. My ATC, I've got my marginal cost curve going through there. This is a bit more confusing of a graph, sketching all of that. But that's what you want to be thinking about, how this fits into the circular flow. And you say, oh yeah, the POG had 4 components to it. It was the perfect competition, the 3 imperfect competitions, and what all goes with those graphs. Those were their own topics and sketching those, but that's where that fits into the circular flow. And then back up here at the resource market, you want to say, oh, wait a second, the resource market, there's 2 types of that we study anyway in this class. There's 2 types of resource markets. Similar to the bottom, we have perfect competition. We could have a perfect competition, or we could have a monopsony. Perfect competition, and one similar to the bottom, you want to think, oh, that's right. This is where Mr. Carlson and Mr. Poulsen came into class. And instead of Mr. Dart being created like it does out of the perfect competition market, in the POG, when we're up here, it's going to create Mr. Carlson. And we say that is Mr. Carlson, MRC, and then there was Mr. Poulsen. And I have to know all of my material for that kind of perfect competition. And then, but there's also the monopsony, which was that goofy looking graph where then we had the chopsticks from above, but Mr. Poulsen didn't really change. So I had to think about how that works. And again, I'm not labeling everything with those, just to see the big picture. And then you also say, well, when I leave my house and I go to the store, you are a demander. You are demanding a product. And the businesses and the firms, they are the ones supplying. So in this bottom half, in these marketplaces, you demand, businesses supply. But in the top half, in the resource market, you are supplying the labor, you're the resource, and the businesses demand it. And this is a little bit of, it's oversimplified to some degree, but this is the circular flow in micro and all the little nuances that went in there. Now this allows you to see market types in the resource market and the circular flow and supply and demand. There's other issues as far as marginal utility and marginal utility per dollar, maximizing resources and all of that. There's little subtleties within here, and even within the marketplace, your average variable cost, your profits, your losses, total revenues, all of your points of intersection you need to know, and same up here. And there's more to it, but this is kind of like a flyover of what you went over, what you've covered, and you want to think about how it all fits together. And so sometimes looking at it again and seeing it all, it clicks in a new way, and you can burrow down into a various topic that maybe you're not so comfortable with from old PowerPoints or in the ultimate review. So that was just a light overview of the circular flow. So good luck as you continue to prepare. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll talk to you later.